Hi guys, Mr. Waffles here. As you can see, I'm still alive. Hey, that's good news, isn't it? This has been coming in handy, that's for sure. I am still away, I am still in the mountains, cozy conditions, but like I said, I had one or two last videos left to post, and this is one of them. So, today we're going to be talking about a conversation I had back in 2016. Riveting, right? Now, before you click off the video and you go and unsubscribe from my channel, give me a second to explain why. Back in 2016, alright, COD XP was happening right at the start of September, just before Revelations came out. Now, Revelations was a bit of a moment in the zombies community because Jason had been going on about these brackets for the story. Nobody really knew what to expect. Is it ending? Like, what's going on? And at COD XP, I got to talk to Jason and I got to talk to Craig, but I also got to talk to co-studio head of Treyarch, Dan Bunting. Now, I've mentioned this conversation once or twice before because it honestly revolutionized the way that I think about how Treyarch thinks about their upcoming releases, and so today I want to basically dive into a bit more detail about what he said to me and how that's going to affect the future of zombies. First though, quick word from the sponsors. You've probably heard about this one all over YouTube because it's the one and only Raid Shadow Legends, a turn-based mobile RPG. It's one of the top 3 RPGs on the Google Play Store, and it's had about 15 million downloads in the last 6 months, so it's growing pretty rapidly. The question is, what is it? Well, it's an epic dark fantasy RPG with over 400 champions that you can collect and use to battle through a fully voiced campaign with 13 different locations, over 1 million possible champion builds, and you can raid with your friends in a clan as well if you want to. The good news is that it's free to play and it actually rewards you for learning how to play with progress missions, giving you loads of free loot, and if you do them all, you'll get one of the best legendary champions in the game called the Arbiter. Like I said, it's growing fast, there's a whole 6-month roadmap planned out, 16 champions being added every month, lots to get stuck into, so click the special link in the description and you'll get 50k silver and a free epic champion as part of their new player program. Give it a download, guys, let me know what you think, and thanks to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. So, this conversation with Dan Bunting, you're probably thinking, they must have been some shiny pearls of wisdom for you to remember them 3 years later. Stick with me here, trust me, there's some good stuff coming. So, what Dan was basically prompting me with wasn't just the sort of typical thing that people assume devs tell YouTubers, like, here's how the story's gonna end, here's what the end cutscene is in Revelations, here's the plans for the next 5 years of Treyarch Call of Duties. It wasn't anything like that. It was actually more just prodding me to think more openly about the possibilities of what Treyarch could do. They were at the design stage, naturally at that point, the end of the DLC cycle for Black Ops 3, where they were putting everything on the table and trying to figure out what they wanted to change, make better, or remove for Black Ops 4. It's completely understandable that after such a successful Black Ops 3 DLC season for zombies, they would want to take that success and ride it off into the sunset for as long as they could. But to do that, they would need to figure out a roadmap that would fit the future, not the present day. This is something that Jason's talked about in the past as well, giving fans what they need, not what they think they want. They're two separate things completely, and what they need in a couple years' time is essentially his job to predict. So they're putting everything on the table. What does that really mean? Well, what do we take for granted in zombies? Rounds are one of them. Zombies are another. You've got main characters that have been a bit of a staple over the years, things like 115, bit of a staple in the story as well. There's other aspects of gameplay like Easter eggs, definitely a staple at this point. No checkpoints, that's been a real thing that they've drilled down into over the years. There have been 1 or 2 checkpointy type things like your transit, die, rise, bury type Easter eggs where there's sort of checkpoints in there, but you don't really have situations where you die, your game ends, and then you jump back in on round 30 where you left off with your same setup, etc. But that's not so much what they've been going for. Maps being fairly static is also something that we've come to expect. You jump into Revelations and you know that you're going to get a certain number of zombies on round 1, a certain thing's going to spawn in on a certain round, and you're going to basically have the same experience each time you play the map. Granted, it's going to change a little bit in the micro scale with things like different spawns and stuff like that, but on the macro scale, you open a door, you know where the door's going to lead, and the map is fairly static. Your experience is pretty repeatable. So that's a nice little list, but what happens when Dan Bunting gets his monkey wrench out and starts cranking things around, destroying them, adding things in weird places that you don't expect, and getting rid of all those things you take for granted? We've got quite a unique lens to look at this through, because this was all pre-Black Ops 4, and Black Ops 4's come out. We know what was in the game, so we can say, here's what they were thinking about, here's how it actually manifested into a product. A perfect example to start things off with is the Chaos storyline. They clearly saw the fact that Aether had become this sprawling, cyclic, crazy, mind-bending mess and thought, you know what, we might be in a better place in 5 or 10 years' time if we shutter Aether and bring people into a new universe that we've basically thought about a bit more in advance, that's a bit more considered, a bit better pre-planned, and that we think fans might ultimately enjoy more. There are a couple of other really good examples in Black Ops 4 as well. The perk system. They clearly looked at the perk system and went, this is no longer fit for purpose. People are too reliant on Jug. Simple fact. People buy Jug in every game. Why not change the system, give people something new? They might not expect it, they might not like it at first, but it's what they need, not what they necessarily want. Another small one is having your health in the corner of the screen. I'm sure they thought about doing that in the past, but they were like, well, I mean, that's not really what Zombies is. Zombies is about having that kind of mystery of how much health you've got. That's part of the DNA of the mode. But clearly, between Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4, they went, you know what? It's just better to give the player that feedback so they can make more informed decisions about what they're doing in the game. Now, these are all great little changes that they made here and there, don't get me wrong, but they're not the grand scale changes that I want to talk about for the rest of this video, okay? So, I want you to think grand scale in terms of what Black Ops 3 was meant to be, certainly the campaign, okay? The Black Ops 3 campaign was originally planned to be open world. Just let that sink in for a second if you haven't heard it before. It's not new news. This is something that's been reported on a couple times. It was meant to be this crazy open world campaign that a Call of Duty had never seen before. And there's aspects of it, little bits and bobs here and there, that you can see were basically pulled out of that system and placed into what then became the more linear campaign that we actually got. Things like the safe house system. You think, oh, that could have sort of slotted into an open world really well. Unfortunately, they didn't quite manage it. They had to pull back the scale of things, the scope of things, and just say linear campaign, normal stuff. And I think that's why the Black Ops 3 campaign ended up feeling a bit topsy-turvy, because they basically had this big grand idea and then had to go, nope, quick, cram it into a normal one. So that sort of explains that. But that's the sort of thing they were going for, blowing the doors off completely and just seeing what they could do with almost an entirely different genre of game for a Call of Duty. Pretty crazy stuff. So you're welcome to think about how mental it would have been if they'd pulled that off for the campaign. But what we're interested in is how mental it would have been if they'd pulled it off for the campaign and for Zombies. Think about how crazy things would be if Zombies was a little bit more open world. I'm sure there are some of you right now that are thinking, nope, not for me. Not what I want. That's not what Zombies is about. That's not the type of game that I want to play. Nuh-uh. But just think for a second about the possibilities that that scale of change could bring to the mode. We've essentially had the same game for 10 years. We have. There have been changes. They added Easter eggs. It's got cutscenes now, things like that. But really, when it comes down to it, we've been doing the same thing. It's been the same sandbox with different things that they've been building. But think about if they did blow the doors off and start making more dynamic maps in a more open world scenario, for example. Think about the idea of what if they got rid of rounds? Like, that could be crazy. If we were in an open world and we're exploring this sort of dynamic, ever-changing environment or whatever it was, whatever thing they ended up with, they might have to get rid of the round system because it might need to be more about your location where you are. There might be safer areas and areas that were much less safe and areas that required you to be super juiced up with your entire loadout and pack-a-punch and all that sort of stuff. Boss fights that you could optionally go to or not. All these sorts of things that you might get in an open world game. And granted, right now, I'm not describing Call of Duty Zombies. I'm describing something that is completely different, really. But it's expanding your mind to think about that large scope and then thinking, okay, out of that massive umbrella universe, what in there is the stuff that the Zombies community needs for 5 years' time? That's what Treyarch's going to be thinking about right now for Black Ops 5. Every single rule that Zombies has been relying on for so long is going to be being looked at, and they're going to be going, you know what, the wall guns, for example, we don't like it anymore, we're changing it. Or maybe loadouts, the entire loadout system, too basic, we're going to add a load more functionality, almost like Modern Warfare or something like that. We're going to really try and dive into gun customization, make guns the main characters, or maybe give you more options to not be using guns. Maybe they'll expand the melee arsenal a bunch and give us a whole new option there, or whatever it might be, right? There's just so many different paths and channels you can go down, and it's the job of people like Dan Bunting, co-studio head, Jason Blundell, director of Zombies, David Vonderhaar, multiplayer wizard, whatever it is that he does a lot of stuff. It's the role of these people to say, let's run with this idea. That's a phenomenal idea, but it's outside the scope right now. We can't do it in the time that we have. Let's save it for a couple of years' time. Let's put that one on the back burner and think about it for Black Ops 6. Now, obviously with Black Ops 5, it's a 2-year COD, and that's pretty scary, right? That is just a scary thing, because Treyarch have got used to at this point having 3 years to develop their games, and suddenly they're making a game for next gen as well as old gen, and they've only got 2 years to do it, and they've only been told that they've got 2 years to do it a year into that time, pretty much. It's a big ask, right? It really is. And they've just come out of their most intensive year of development ever with Black Ops 4, the most supported game they've ever made. As much as with Zombies, it felt like there could have been a lot more, it is the game that they've made the most content for ever so far. And so those devs are going to be pretty burned out right now, I'm pretty sure. Those devs are going to be working their butts off from today, from 6 months prior to today, but from today until release, pretty much, they are going to be working like crazy to try and deliver on some of these things. And so let's hope that they can take some of that infrastructure that they might have built during Black Ops 3 and use some of those ideas that they tried to put into that open world and things like that. They can pull those forwards and expand on them and make that whatever crazy thing we get in Black Ops 5. Let's hope so. There's obviously a risk of overhyping yourself too much and expecting a million things to have changed, and then you get the same old Zombies and it's like, well, this is a disappointment. Whereas if you just expected the same old Zombies, you would have been like, wait, it's the same old Zombies, I'm happy. So let's not go too overboard here, but I want to get people thinking about these things, because if we're jazzed about these ideas and we're talking about these ideas, I know for a fact that it trickles down to Treyarch as well. And granted, they can't do everything. Every idea under the sun can't get executed and made and developed and tested, but just having an ongoing lively conversation about these things is part of having a healthy community. It really is. And as much as this is a down year, it pays, I think, to have some of these aspirational thoughts in your head, because it puts you in a good mindset to look forward to what's to come. So, Treyarch, what's on my wish list? Well, there's a couple of things actually that I've already mentioned a few times over the years to Jason Blundell and to various other devs here and there as well. One of them is the idea of doing dynamic things within the maps that aren't necessarily your sort of Fortnite scale live event type things, launching a rocket, launches for everyone, that sort of thing. You could absolutely go down that path, and we'll talk about that in a second, but even just small things, like for example, let's say on Revelations, every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, or whatever, what if the truck in the Revelations spawn started beeping out a little message? And over the course of a couple weeks, you had to get a part of the message every week and then piece it together at the end to learn something about the story. Alternatively, what if there was something that happened in Revelations in the Shangri-La area, but at the same time, there was something happening in the Origins area, and at the same time, there was something happening in the Spawn, and so you required players to be in different instances, in different areas of the map, but coordinating with each other to try and piece things together, whatever it may be. Whether it's a character that appears and says hello, and if no one's there, they say hello to thin air and then they disappear. Or if there's someone to watch it, they record it, the community comes together, and we figure out what the hell's going on with whoever it could be. These sorts of community building, dynamic events are something that I would absolutely love to see more of in Zombies, because really, there hasn't been any of that so far. Then if you really want to blow the doors off, let's go for the Fortnite scale type thing. And I know a lot of people are tired of hearing about Fortnite, but they've created a model that a lot of people haven't been able to replicate and that is massively successful. So it's worth at least talking about the good parts of it so you can figure out what might be good to bring into other systems. The whole idea of the rocket launching and things like that, I think is awesome. I think that's really damn cool. Imagine if the first people to do the Der Eisendrache Easter egg did that Easter egg and then blew up the moon And then for all other players, maybe in an open world context of zombies, if they looked at the moon, it had blown up because those players had blown it up. That would be incredible, almost like the Dreaming City situation with Last Wish for Destiny 2. So Forsaken came out, people did Last Wish, and as soon as they finished that raid, which is basically an Easter egg, it transformed the game for everybody. That's just so cool. That's so goddamn cool, man. And I'd love to see that sort of thing happening in zombies. Just once, even. Just a test run. Something like that could be phenomenal. It'd be a lot of work, I'm sure. A lot of devs would be doing a lot of overtime, but it would be so damn cool. And granted, to make those sorts of things work, you would need a way of letting players still redo the Easter eggs without the moon blowing up, for example. So you might need some kind of, not checkpointing system, but some kind of chronology to the unfolding events of the universe going on around you that you'd need to be able to jump in and out of and back and forward in. Those are the sorts of things that they would need to be thinking about, and there's a lot of complexity there, I'm sure, as well. But just as an idea, something that I think is really cool. And so now I want to open it up to you guys. What sort of ideas do you have for the next, not even 12 months, really, realistically, 8 months or so of development that Treyarch has? If there was one thing that you could squeeze into the game, however big or small, let's not worry about scope here, but let's keep it to one thing. What would you squeeze in and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And you never know, maybe we'll make a top 5 community suggestions type video or something like that and actually have a real cool discussion about all these crazy ideas that Treyarch could or couldn't manage to fit in their allotted time, which is quickly running out. Thanks for watching the video, guys. I appreciate that my voice has been a little croaky through this one, so thanks for sticking with me. And thanks again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring the video. Like I said, click the link in the description down below. They've been really supportive of me taking my time away, my little trip, and I'm super grateful for that. I wouldn't be able to be doing this little break without sponsor help, so it's basically my replacement for a Patreon right now. Very, very thankful to them. So thank you for being so supportive and so lovely in the comment section and on Twitter and all sorts. Thank you. It means a lot. I'll talk to you next time. Okay? 1 or 2 more videos left. I think actually 1 more. And then a break for 2 weeks or so, and then maybe 1 video there, which is something that I already recorded a while ago, so that's an easy one. And then, yeah, bit of a gap from me. Ugh, scary. All right, cheers guys. Bye for now.